question. Am I the only person who wakes up multiple times during the night before a flight? Like, I find it crazy that my flight is at 4:30 p.m. and I'm waking up at 2, 3, 4 because I'm afraid I'm gonna miss my flight. What the hell? Okay, now on a serious note, one of my subscribers pointed out the fact that they'd never seen the parallels between grinding in a game and actually a language, and I figured, you know what? I don't think I've actually covered this in depth, because to me this parallel's always been very obvious. And I feel like so many people are happy to grind away countless hours in a game without even thinking about it, but once you say you gotta grind a language, they're like, oh my god, I can't do that. But realistically, at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing. So let's use the game that most people who play games know, that game being World of Warcraft. This chair is squeaking like hell. Okay, so in World of Warcraft, you start a character. You gotta first pick your character. Well, you're picking your language, just like you are at the start. Okay, now you've got your language, you've got your character. What's the first thing you gotta start doing? You gotta start learning the most basic of skills. So you gotta learn how to hit something. You've gotta learn how to heal yourself. You gotta learn how to run a little bit faster. All these most basic actions, well, that's what you're doing at the beginning of a language. You're learning all the most basic actions. And then you start fighting the mobs, the little enemies along the way, and gaining experience. Well, there, you're starting to absorb the language. You're starting to get sentences into your head. You're starting to pick it up. And you're starting with the most basic, easy to kill sentences, because obviously you can't take on the level 60 thing yet because you'll be squished. So it's the same type of concept. And then as you start to get a little bit further up, maybe you hit 11, 12 in level in a game in the language world. That would be like very, very basic level entry of a language. And then you go on your first little group battle type of thing where you join others together. Well, then that would be your first conversations. It's where you're starting to use your skills in effect with other people. And sometimes you fail. The whole group wipes and it's all your fault because you didn't know how to communicate. But that's just part of the game. What do? You go back and you try again until you conquer that conversation, until you conquer whatever it is you're trying to do at that moment. And then what do? You go back to grinding. You keep grinding up, you keep leveling up, you keep learning new skills along the way, you keep getting better equipment and armor. In this case, that may be the things that you use to learn with. Maybe it's your tools, maybe it's your methodologies, it doesn't matter. But then there comes that part in gaming where from 1 to say, let's say 25, it's really easy and you're making great progress, you're starting to do some amazing things, and then it just slows down and it feels like you've stopped and you haven't made any progress at all, and you're just grinding and grinding and grinding. And that, my friends, is the intermediary plateau. And what does everyone do where they're at that point of level 30 to 40 in these types of games? They're just sitting there dreaming about the day that they can get to endgame. Endgame being fluency in our case. So what do you keep doing? You keep grinding away, you keep taking part in those group discussions or group battles here, and eventually you start to get very close. You're like level 50 and level 60s right there. That's where you're like at the end of your intermediary stage. You're starting to get more advanced. You're starting to understand the majority of conversations that are happening around you, but there's still big parts that are missing. This is the part where things start to feel like they pick up a little bit again, even though they realistically aren't picking up, because you're starting to get the taste of the end game here. And then eventually you hit level 16, you're like, I'm fluent. I don't need to grind anymore. But then you don't grind to level anymore. You start taking part in these great big raids, these great big groups of many, many other people. And now you're just grinding for gear. And then eventually you're starting taking part more in the social aspects of the game. And then eventually you're just grinding all the friendships along the way, because you're not there to level up your skills so much anymore. You're there to actually enjoy and take part in the language. And the funny thing is, if you ever take part in true endgame of these types of games, you will notice that there is no end to it. It just continues on and on and on. And what do most people do after a while once they've done a lot of endgame? They re-roll and make a new character. That's you starting your next language, baby. So I just wanted to draw out those parallels and make them very obvious, because to me, I've always looked at it like it's just a game. And I guess that's probably because I come from a game development background. I build games for a living. And when I build games and I look at games, I look at the systems that underline these games and I see languages exactly the same way. And this parallel, funnily enough, doesn't just work for languages, it works for many things in life. You can think about it, for example, physical fitness. You could apply these same methodologies upon physical fitness. And I probably will one day, just not at this stage because I've got a lot more other interests. But I just wanted to lay that out there, give you guys like a quick little insight into my weird ass brain. And now I need to actually get back to packing because, well, I've still got a flight happening in like 5 hours. And I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, well, I'm gonna find your little group and I'm gonna wipe the hell out of yous.